Okay, so you've probably seen those headlines, right? Brain-eating amoeba. And that name, Naegleria Fowleri, it definitely sounds pretty terrifying. But for you, listening to this deep dive, the real story isn't just that initial shock. It's more about how these, seemingly rare things can suddenly become urgent public health issues when the environment changes. And it really shows a system under stress.
Exactly, and that's what we want to unpack today. I mean, yes, infection with Naegleria fowleri is thankfully still extremely rare, very rare, but this recent spike in cases in Kerala, India, that's making news globally. So our mission today is to understand this organism, figure out why Kerala is seeing this unusual outbreak right now, and also look at the frankly remarkable progress they're making in treatment. And crucially, talk about how you can protect yourself.
Right, because it's not just about some scary amoeba. It's, like you said, this fascinating picture of environmental health, public policy, medical response all coming together. It gives you insights that go way beyond just the scary headlines. So let's start with the basics. What exactly is Naegleria fowleri? What makes it so dangerous?
Okay, so it's a tiny microscopic organism, single-celled amoeba, and it lives naturally in warm fresh water. Think lakes, rivers, ponds, maybe even poorly chlorinated swimming pools sometimes. The danger really starts when water containing this amoeba gets forced up your nose. Usually happens during things like swimming or diving, that sort of activity.
Okay, forced up the nose. And then what happens? How does it cause these, devastating effects?
Well, from inside your nose, it basically follows the olfactory nerves. That's the pathway your sense of smell uses directly into the brain. And once it's there, it causes a really severe infection. It's called primary amoebic meningoencephalitis, or PAM. This leads to rapid brain swelling, tissue damage, and historically, PAM has been almost always fatal. Yeah. The early symptoms, they often look like the flu fever, headache, nausea, but they get much worse very, very quickly.
So how did this tiny deadly thing become such a big focus in Kerala, India? What's behind their unusually high number of cases?
Well, the situation in Kerala really shows what happens when certain environmental factors line up. They've reported, 69 cases and 19 deaths just this year, which is incredibly high compared to, what you'd normally see globally over several years.
That's a huge jump.
It is. And the thinking is it's largely down to rising water temperatures. Climate change is making the water warmer, creating better breeding conditions for Naegleria fowleri. Plus, hotter weather means more people are cooling off in fresh water, right? So more potential exposure.
And I read it's not just the heat, there's another factor too.
That's right, exactly. Sewage contamination is also a big issue in many of Kerala's freshwater bodies, unfortunately. This sewage basically provides, food for the amoeba, helps it multiply even faster. And unlike maybe past isolated cases, this outbreak seems quite widespread across the state. It's affecting people of all ages. It's a real-time example of how environmental shifts can amplify these kinds of dormant threats.
Okay, so given how deadly this infection usually is, the response in Kerala sounds, genuinely hopeful. You mentioned better survival rates.
Yes, that's a really crucial point. Historically, the global death rate for PAM is something like 97%, just devastating. But in Kerala this year, doctors have managed to save about 1 in 4 patients. 25% survival.
That's incredible comparatively.
It really is. And it seems to be down to incredibly fast diagnosis and starting very aggressive treatment immediately. They're using a drug called miltefosine. It was originally for cancer, along with other meds, to, kill the amoeba, but also reduce that dangerous brain swelling. The key really is speed. The earlier you start treatment, the better the chance of survival. It just highlights how important awareness is.
Which brings us to the question everyone listening probably has.
Yeah.
What can you do to protect yourself?
Right. The absolute key is preventing that water from going forcefully up your nose. So if you're swimming in warm, freshwater lakes, ponds, rivers, especially when it's hot out, think about using nose clips, or consciously hold your nose shut, or just make an effort to keep your head above the water.
Okay.
Also, probably best to avoid diving or jumping in head first, and try not to stir up the sediment, the mud at the bottom, because that's often where the amoeba hangs out.
What about things like neti pots? People using those for nasal rinsing.
Ah, yes. Very important point. Never, ever use untreated tap water for nasal rinsing. That's a known risk factor. You need to use water that's distilled or sterile, or water that's been boiled and then properly cooled down.
Good to know.
And it's worth remembering, properly chlorinated swimming pools are generally safe. Chlorine kills the amoeba. And salt water, like the ocean, isn't the suitable environment for it either. But the big takeaway is, If you develop symptoms like a severe headache, fever, nausea, stiff neck after you've had freshwater exposure, get medical help immediately and make sure you tell the doctors about that exposure. So look, while your individual risk from Naegleria fowleri is still extremely low, let's be clear on that, compare the situation driven by those specific factors, warmer water, sewage issues, it really does highlight a bigger picture, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. This deep dive is a stark reminder, really, that things like clean water infrastructure, proper sanitation, they aren't just conveniences, they're fundamental to public health. Especially, as our climate keeps changing, it's a critical line of defense.
Exactly. And what's kind of compelling, even amidst the concern, is that Kerala's experience also shows human resilience, and medical innovation in action, saving roughly 1 in 4 people from an infection that was almost always fatal. That shows that even these rare, incredibly dangerous threats can be managed better. It requires communities staying alert, healthcare systems adapting quickly. So it really makes you think, doesn't it? What does this real-time example tell us about how we prepare for whatever health challenges might be coming next?